You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. This Monday night, witness the end of an era. John Cena takes center stage for his final appearance ever on Monday Night Raw. One last match, one unforgettable farewell. Come celebrate the legacy of a true WWE legend. Monday Night Raw, November 17th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time, only on Netflix. Be there for the moment everyone will be talking about.
Warning: this episode will discuss violence and heinous crimes committed against children. Listen with care. America seems to have a child abuse problem. By that, of course, I do mean, in one sense, the prevalence of violence against children, even if we are listed among the top 5 countries considered to be the best environment for children, and more specifically, the prevalence of child sexual abuse, though again, the US does have a lower rate than most other countries, at around 10%. Obviously, the occurrence of any such abuse will always be intolerable and unconscionable. But the child abuse problem I mean goes all the way to the top here in the US, to the halls of power, and to the bottom, to the very foundations of our culture. Ever since Donald Trump started his run for office in 2016, he was connected to incidents of sexual indiscretion, and specifically sexual assault, what with numerous rape allegations, one of them successfully adjudicated, and the Access Hollywood tape of him remarking on groping women without their consent. But particularly disgusting have been his inappropriate remarks about minors, such as remarking about a young girl that he would be dating her in the future.
You're going up the escalator? I'm going to be dating her in 10 years. Can you believe it?
And talking about his attraction to his own daughter.
I've said that if Ivanka were my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her.
She's actually always been very voluptuous. She's tall. She's almost 6 feet tall.
She's 6 feet tall. She's got the best body.
Yeah, she's hot.
But throughout this decade that we have had to stomach his repugnant prominence, the allegations of his abuse of minors are the most unsettling. Numerous teen pageant contestants have alleged that he walked in on them changing, which Trump has publicly boasted about doing to contestants of pageants he owned.
I'll tell you the funniest is that I'll go backstage before a show.
Yes.
And everyone's getting dressed and ready and everything else. And, no men are anywhere. And I'm allowed to go in because I'm the owner of the pageant and therefore I'm inspecting it. Is everyone okay? They're standing there with no clothes. Is everybody okay? And you see these incredible looking women.
And his friendship with known pedophile rapist Jeffrey Epstein has long troubled him. Even during his 2016 run for office, an unnamed plaintiff alleged that she had been sexually assaulted by Trump in Epstein's New York apartment when she was 13 years old.
Breaking news involving a woman who claims Donald Trump raped her when she was 13.
Definitely some confusion here since that woman who is accusing Trump of raping her when she was a child decided not to appear. Instead, her attorney came out and said that the woman was too afraid to speak.
Jane Doe has received numerous threats today, as have all the Trump accusers that I have represented. She is living in fear. She has decided that she is too afraid to show her face.
Yet, strangely, his very prominent friendship with Epstein and this scandalous lawsuit did not stick to the Teflon Trump, and instead, pedophilia allegations troubled his opponent, Hillary Clinton, whose husband, ex-President Bill Clinton, was also a longtime associate of Epstein's. This connection was less important at the time, though, as the claims arose from online misinformation, specifically the Pizzagate conspiracy theory, dreamed up whole cloth by a white supremacist on Twitter who claimed that police had discovered evidence in sifting through the emails of disgraced House Democrat Anthony Weiner, whose career was tanked by a sexting scandal, that prominent Democrats ran a pedophile ring. after WikiLeaks released the hacked emails of Hillary Clinton's campaign chair, John Podesta, addle-pated sleuths pored over them, believing they found coded language referring to not just child sexual abuse, but satanic ritual abuse occurring in a non-existent basement of a DC pizza and ping pong joint frequented by Democratic insiders. The entire stupid and dangerous affair concluded with a North Carolina man driving there to quote-unquote self-investigate and shooting up the building with an AR-15.
Tonight, a terrifying moment. Authorities say a man with an AR-15 opening fire after police say he showed up at a family pizza joint after reading a fake news story around the election. Edgar Welch saying he was there to investigate a story from the internet, that a child abuse ring was being operated there, but the story was completely untrue.
Followers of the Pizzagate conspiracy, which Trump allies encouraged, eventually transformed or were folded into the burgeoning QAnon conspiracy complex, which came to view Trump as waging a one-man war against a powerful quote-unquote liberal elite of satanic child abusers who assault and murder children in order to harvest a rare drug called adrenochrome. Ridiculously, this idea, the adrenochrome element specifically, seems to have been taken from Hunter S. Thompson's 1971 book, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, in which Thompson described it as an almost legendarily powerful drug that is only produced by the human body.
What is this shit?
That stuff makes pure mescaline seem like ginger beer, man. Adrenochrome.
Adrenochrome? Where'd you get this?
Never mind, it's absolutely pure.
What kind of monster client have you hooked up with this time?
Satanism freak.
I think there's only one source for this stuff, the adrenaline gland from a living human body.
However, no matter what Thompson's claims to being a nonfiction writer might have been, this was fiction. He seems to have been referring to the discredited work of two psychiatric researchers in the 1950s, who theorized that the improper metabolization of adrenaline might be the cause of schizophrenia. Their theory proved to be false, and nowhere in their work was there any indication that this chemical could only be harvested by killing children. In fact, adrenaline was successfully synthesized as epinephrine as early as 1904, and the production of adrenochrome, such as it was, only required its oxidization in a lab. While it may seem unnecessary to debunk such a far-out claim, it is still worthwhile to point out that there is absolutely nothing to this idea. Nevertheless, it produced a groundswell of political activism, with an anti-human trafficking campaign called Save the Children managing to recruit and inspire activism even among many who would otherwise have balked at QAnon claims, many of whom were gradually radicalized by the conspiracism of the movement. This constituency became so important to Trump that even though Epstein's controversial and many believe suspicious suicide occurred during his administration, and even though his former deep association with Epstein was being more and more revealed by investigative journalists, Trump still fanned the flames of the conspiracy theory suggesting a link between Epstein and the Hollywood and liberal elite, even promising during his 2024 presidential campaign to release all the files on Epstein's crimes and accomplices. It's rather funny now to see his base turn against him, as he has backpedaled, refused to release the files, and does anything and everything he can to distract the public from the scandal. This current moral panic and conspiracism about child trafficking, pedophilia, and murder echoes numerous other moral panics throughout history, and examining the long history of these hysterias offers further insight into modern political forces. Indeed, exploring the most recent of such panics in the 1980s, provides a compelling explanation for the development of the current political moment. This is Historical Blindness. I'm Nathaniel Lloyd, and without cognitive dissonance, I can acknowledge the very real crimes of Epstein and his accomplices, as well as the fact that pedophiles and sexual predators do often operate with impunity from the realms of power, while also rejecting notions of massive organized cover-ups like those typically alleged in these panics. Thank you for listening to Think of the Children, Part 1, Stranger Danger. Before we continue the episode, I want to thank my newest patron, RIRV1246. Thanks so much for your support. Patrons of the show get access to an exclusive RSS feed with ad-free versions of the show, early release of episodes, teasers, and exclusive minisodes between every main release, making this a weekly podcast for patrons on Patreon. If you hear minisodes and think they're little blurbs or insubstantial sound bites, think again. They're fully researched and produced episodes, anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes long. And they tie in with the main episode topics. And they even sometimes fill in the gaps and tell the rest of the story that my main episode didn't have time to tell. For example, after my episode on the poltergeist in Rosenheim, I released a minisode about parapsychologists' claims for the explanation of poltergeists. And after my episode on the Highgate vampire, I released a minisode about Bram Stoker's inspiration for Dracula and its influence on the Highgate vampire claims, as well as another claim about a real vampire in London. For listeners who are interested, I also sell these exclusive minisodes for just $3 a pop. So head over to patreon.com/historicalblindness and consider purchasing the occasional blind spot minisode that interests you, or supporting the podcast for as little as $1 a month. Now, let's continue the episode. Welcome to Historical Blindness. When it comes to moral panics, one nearly universal constant is a concern over some phenomenon's effect on children, that some group or trend is corrupting youth, exposing them to harmful ideas or behaviors, or directly harming youth in the form of physical or mental abuse, molestation, or murder. We see it all the way back in antiquity, around 400 years before the Common Era, in what could be considered the first moral panic, when philosopher Socrates was put on trial and executed because his questioning of authority and tradition was considered a threat to the status quo, and specifically to the young, whom it was claimed Socrates was corrupting with his subversive ideas. In the Roman Empire, Christians were persecuted and accused of cannibalism because of their Eucharist ritual, and of incest because of their tradition of calling each other brother and sister. And due to the large number of abandoned children in Roman society, owing to their practice of infant exposure or the abandonment of unwanted newborns, it came to be further claimed that Christians were eating babies. Similarly, in the Middle Ages, the anti-Semitic blood libel turned this same false accusation against Jews, claiming that they used the blood of Christian children to make their Passover matzah bread, and horrifically claiming that they killed children by enacting the crucifixion as a further profanation of Christianity. Later, in the 15th century, European witch hunters made the same claims, that witches cooked and ate babies or somehow sucked the life out of their navels. In all of these cases, the false claims encouraged widespread persecution, pogroms, and murder. Specifically, in the case of European witch hunts, perhaps the most prominent of historical moral panics, it was actually the accusers themselves who killed children, as by the 17th century, many children had been themselves accused of witchcraft, and were being tortured and executed for it. Along with accusations of sacrificing and cannibalizing children, of course, were accusations of child abduction. For these Christians, Jews, witches, etc., could not very well commit their evil deeds on little ones without first luring them away and snatching them. In this regard, early modern fear of witches stealing children might be compared to 19th century fears of Native Americans abducting settler children during their raids, something that did occasionally occur, but which was overblown as a huge existential threat. And though white settlers might have feared their children were enduring sexual assault or sacrifice in godless pagan rituals, in reality children taken by war parties were usually assimilated, raised by parents who had lost their own children. And as with Romans accusing Christians of eating the babies they had themselves left to die, and witch hunters executing supposed child witches, the more widespread threat to children was from the accusers themselves and their forcible removal and re-education of Native children in Indian boarding schools, where those children faced real physical, sexual, and emotional abuse, and in many cases did not survive their childhood. So we see the fears of an other, some outsider to society who does not conform to social norms. Abducting children and harming them is a long-standing aspect of moral panics and was a simmering fear already among Americans in the 19th century. In 1874, that fear evolved, and a different sort of boogeyman was born, a nefarious criminal who walks among civilized society plotting to harm children for personal gain, when the first widely reported and scandalous kidnapping for ransom occurred in America. Little 4-year-old curly-headed Charlie Brewster Ross was playing with his 5-year-old brother Walter in the front yard of their home in the well-to-do neighborhood of Germantown in northwest Philadelphia when a horse-drawn carriage pulled up and its occupants asked the boys to go for a ride. These men had been visiting the boys for days, ingratiating themselves with gifts of candy. The boys rode with the men to a store where the older brother, Walter, was given a quarter and sent inside to buy fireworks. When he returned, the carriage was gone, and his little brother Charlie with it. Soon after, a ransom letter was received by their father, stating in part, quote, "We got him, and no powers on earth can deliver out of our hand," end quote, demanding that he not contact police and gather $20,000 as ransom. Unfortunately, Mr. Ross was not so well off as his home would suggest, and was in fact deeply in debt. So he sought police help, and lacking any effective strategies for dealing with such crimes, they spread the word. Prominent Philadelphians paid the Pinkerton Detective Agency to search for culprits, and the entire city was papered with missing child flyers. The story quickly became national news, and some viewed this as the dawn of America's obsession with true crime. Though the same could be said about the Manhattan Well murder back in 1800 or the murder of Helen Jewett in 1836. Both highly publicized in newspapers, and both stories I have explored in their own episodes. But to illustrate how famous this case was, even after 2 burglars who had been gunned down in the act of robbing a judge's house reportedly confessed to having abducted and murdered Charlie, and the elder Ross boy apparently identified them based on the distinctive deformed nose of one of the men, the father continued to search for Charlie for the rest of his life and found no shortage of imposters claiming to be the missing boy. Even as late as 1934, a nearly 70-year-old man came forward claiming he was Charlie, a claim that would be disproven more than 70 years later with DNA evidence. By the time he came forward in the 30s, though, other ransom kidnappings had eclipsed the Charlie Ross case. specifically the Lindbergh kidnapping, about which I produced a series a couple years back. But even before the Lindbergh case, another child abduction and murder captured the attention of the nation, and this one especially saw our national fear of kidnappers evolve into a fear not of callous criminals who would do anything for money, but of depraved madmen who were driven by unfathomably darker motivations to take and harm children. After the Charlie Ross abduction, the next biggest case to drive the panic about child abduction and murder was the Leopold and Loeb case. Called the crime of the century once the murderers were caught and confessed, it at first seemed a pretty standard abduction and ransom of a wealthy watch manufacturer's 14-year-old son. The father had received a ransom letter, but all communication ceased when the boy's body was discovered in a culvert, bludgeoned to death. His face and genitals burned with acid in an attempt to prevent his identification. Police were pretty quickly able to find their suspects, 19 and 18-year-old Nathan Leopold and Richard Loeb, university students from affluent families, because Leopold had dropped a unique pair of spectacles near the body. Their alibi thereafter fell apart because their chauffeur told police he had not been driving them and was in fact repairing the car on the night in question. After the typewriter they had used to write the ransom note was discovered, both confessed, each blaming the other for the murder. Over the course of their highly publicized trial, details emerged that were truly disturbing. The two were casual criminals and sociopaths, encouraging each other in an ever-escalating crime spree, from cheating at cards to throwing bricks through windows and committing arson. Finally, they had planned their supposedly perfect crime together, less for the ransom money and more for the bragging rights, believing it would prove them to be the intellectual superiors of the world if they were to get away with it. While Loeb seemed to be out for thrills, Leopold especially seemed to view their crimes philosophically, latching onto the notion of the Übermensch in the writings of Friedrich Nietzsche. Leopold imagined that their superior intellects meant they could not be bound by the same laws as normal people. It was the first truly famous example of the abduction and murder of a child simply for the sake of committing the crime, for the feeling that the killers got out of it. One could not blame society or the economy or an inherent tendency toward criminality believed to be common among lower classes. These were wealthy, privileged young men with all the advantages in the world who wanted for nothing. Hearing them talk about their misguided notions of superiority and their lack of any empathy, Leopold specifically compared murdering the boy to choosing pie for dinner, saying he only did it for the pleasure it gave him. What emerged from the trial was the terrifying realization that there existed predators in the world, individuals whose minds were twisted by narcissism, sociopathy, or psychopathy, who might simply snatch and kill kids for their own enjoyment. This terrifying notion came into clearer focus for many Americans after the capture of two notorious child killers, Peter Kudzanowski in the 20s and Albert Fish in the 30s. In 1928, while jailed in Detroit for public intoxication, Kudzanowski confessed to having killed a boy in New York a month earlier. Police didn't take him seriously and released him, but he came back drunk again and further confessed to the murder of a little girl earlier that year in New Jersey, as well as a friend of his some years earlier. Once his confession and crimes were finally confirmed, and the story of how he lured children away with promises of candy, only to strike them down and strangle them in a drunken stupor, New York newspapers covered his trials, calling him a fiend. This killer would not stoke public fear in the same way as his contemporary, Albert Fish, though. Killing at the same time and in some of the same areas, certain victims of Albert Fish were thought by police to be further victims of Kudzanowski. But in the 30s, Fish sent a taunting letter to the parents of one of his victims, including a long and rambling story about a friend having acquired a taste for human flesh while visiting China during a famine, and how his friend's stories had inspired him to abduct, murder, and eat their daughter. The stationery on which the letter had been written eventually led detectives to Fish, a mentally ill man with a long criminal history. As the details of Fish's many child murders became clearer, the horror of what such a deranged killer might do to an unlucky child seized the morbid imagination of the country. Newspapers encouraged this media sensation, giving Fish lurid nicknames like the Brooklyn Vampire, the Werewolf of Wisteria, the Moon Maniac, the Gray Man, and the Boogeyman. During Fish's 1935 trial, spectators packed the courtroom, and every gruesome detail was reported in the news, from the truly awful things he did to his victims, which I would rather not talk about, to his disturbing self-mutilation, stabbing his own groin and abdomen with needles. X-rays revealed nearly 30 needles inside his body. While investigators only tied Fish to 10 murders, the killer boasted of having taken the lives of around 100, claiming he, quote, had children in every state, end quote. The press hounded Fish all the way to the electric chair, and memory of his crimes, inflated by Fish's unlikely boasting and the public's morbid imagination, has haunted America ever since. It has sometimes been claimed that the saying, "Don't take candy from strangers," originated in the media frenzy surrounding the disappearance of little Charlie Ross, as his kidnappers apparently ingratiated themselves to the children with candy. But I have not been able to find any actual support for this. Google Ngram shows the earliest mention of such a phrase in 1905. In a story in the ladies' magazine American Motherhood, in which a concerned mom tells her daughter to, quote, not take candy from strangers, for not all strangers are to be trusted, end quote, and proceed to tell her daughter about poor Charlie Ross. With no earlier mention in print until some 30 years after the incident, it is hard to confidently credit the Ross abduction for the coining of the phrase. By 1925, in a home economics textbook for children called Everyday Living for Boys and Girls, you could find it on a list of safety reminders, placed at number 36 out of 37. Never accept rides from strangers, as children are sometimes kidnapped, it reads. And do not take candy from strangers. Just before the wise counsel, quote, avoid using cracked dishes, end quote. But otherwise it is hardly anywhere found in print. Even as late as the 1930s, following the child killings of Peter Kudzanowski, who actually lured children to their deaths using candy, it is barely found at all in print. The term's prevalence does not really start to rise until the 1960s, when, interestingly, Hammer Films, that purveyor of vampire schlock, produced a film about pedophilia called Never Take Candy from a Stranger.
Our story takes place in eastern Canada, but it could happen to children anywhere, just as it did one day to Lucille and Jean.
Stop! Help!
As an entire town is aroused by a question that challenges everyone, everywhere, every day. Never take candy. Never take candy from a stranger.
By the 1970s, the term was skyrocketing, and perhaps related to that is the fact that here in the US, there were two notorious cases, both in Texas, involving the murder of minors and candy. The first and the most horrific was the Houston mass murder case of serial killer Dean Corll, who first started preying on teen boys while running his family candy company. They called him the Pied Piper and sometimes the Candyman.
David, this entire story of sadistic slayings would almost appear to be fiction, scripted with the full intention of shocking readers over and over again. It's that hard to believe. So many lives involved, so many killed over such a long period of time, and all of it going undetected. But it's not fiction. It's very real. A deadly conspiracy now listed as one of the most horrifying crimes in this century. Death in most cases came after the victims had been subjected to various sex acts and torture.
But in reality, Corll wasn't going around luring children away with candy. It wasn't a stranger abducting children. It was actually Corll's teenage accomplices who were bringing Corll kids that they knew.
The victims were all boys in the early to mid-teens who allegedly had been lured into a death trap by this young man, 17-year-old Elmer Wayne Henley.
Corll's crimes are the stuff that nightmares and moral panics are made of. He raped and murdered some 30 or more boys, and his possession of child pornography led some to believe he was linked to a nationwide human trafficking ring run by notorious pedophile John David Norman, whose operation was more concretely tied to the murders of Corll's contemporary, John Wayne Gacy. The revelation that such awful crimes and widespread trafficking operations were happening in America beneath our very noses certainly did contribute to the coming moral panic in the 80s, helping to forge the national myth that pedophile abductors and serial murderers were far more common than they actually were. Now for a brief intermission. In the fall of 1620, a battered merchant ship called the Mayflower set sail across the Atlantic. It carried 102 men, women, and children, risking it all to start again in the New World. Every week on American History Tellers, host Lindsey Graham takes you through the moments that shaped America. In the latest season, he explores the untold story of the Pilgrims, one that goes far beyond the familiar tale of the first Thanksgiving. After landing at Cape Cod, the Pilgrims forged an unlikely alliance with the Wampanoag people. They helped them survive the most brutal winter they had ever known, laying the foundation for a powerful national myth. But behind that story lies another, one of conflict, betrayal, and brutal violence against the very people who helped them survive. Follow American History Tellers on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. You can binge all episodes of American History Tellers The Mayflower early and ad-free right now on Wondery Plus. It used to be I never questioned those jaw-dropping monthly bills from my overpriced wireless service, until finally I'd had enough, and I stopped saying yes and started saying no and using Mint Mobile instead. If you're still overpaying for wireless, it's time you said yes to saying no. At Mint Mobile, their favorite word is no. No contracts, no monthly bills, no overages, no hidden fees, no BS. This is why I said yes to making the switch and getting premium wireless service for $15 a month. All their plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text, and it's delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. I couldn't believe how strong my signal always was. Plus, you get to use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan. And I got to keep my phone number, keep all my contacts, and keep a lot more money in my pocket. Ready to say yes to saying no? Make the switch at mintmobile.com/blindness. That's mintmobile.com/blindness. Upfront payment of $45 required, equivalent to $15 a month. Limited time new customer offer for first 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Commercial Insurance. Business owners, meet Progressive Insurance. They make it easy to get discounts on commercial auto insurance and find coverages to grow with your business. Quote in as little as 8 minutes at progressivecommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company. Coverage provided and serviced by affiliated and third-party insurers. Discounts and coverage selections not available in all states or situations.
I turned off news altogether.
I hate to say it, but I don't trust much of anything.
It's the rage bait.
It feels like it's trying to divide people.
If we got clear facts, maybe we can calm down a little.
NBC News brings you clear reporting. Let's meet at the facts. Let's move forward from there. NBC News, reporting for America.
Now, back to the show. In 1974, a year after Dean Corll was murdered by one of his teen accomplices and his crimes came to light, the story of a different Candyman killer in Texas gripped the country. On Halloween night, after trick-or-treating, 8-year-old Timothy O'Brien ate a pixie sticks and died of cyanide poisoning. The boy's father, Ronald Clark O'Brien, could at first not remember who had given his son the pixie sticks, but eventually he directed police to one house where he claimed to remember seeing a hairy arm extend from a shadowy doorway to offer the poisoned candy. The owner of the house, it turns out, wasn't even home at the time, and investigators became suspicious of Ronald, who, it turns out, had taken out life insurance policies on his son. In the end, it was proven that the man had murdered his own son for the money.
Most of today's testimony came from Jimmy Bates, a close friend of the O'Brien family. Bates said that before Halloween, O'Brien asked if he could bring his children over to trick-or-treat with the Bates children on Halloween night. Both families ate dinner together, and then the fathers took the children trick-or-treating. Bates said O'Brien went to one house where no one appeared to be home, and after the children had scampered ahead to the next house, O'Brien came off the front porch carrying the pixie sticks. He gave the pixie sticks to the children and then later took them back and said he wanted to stop at his car for a moment. Bates said when O'Brien came back into the Bates house, he returned the pixie sticks to the children. Later that night, Timothy O'Brien died from eating a poisoned pixie stick.
And despite the fact that there has never been another confirmed case of poisoned Halloween candy or tampered with candy such as apples with razor blades embedded within them, Halloween would never be the same. Every year throughout the 1980s and 90s, you heard cautionary tales about serial child poisoners who sat in the darkness of their homes tampering with candy, hoping to anonymously murder your kids. It got to the point that hospitals everywhere began offering free x-rays of Halloween candy for parents' peace of mind.
Thousands of witches, warlocks, ghosts, and goblins went door to door tonight collecting candy. Many parents went along with their trick-or-treaters to make sure nothing went wrong and to keep their kids from eating any of the candy before they had a chance to look it over. Most Austin hospitals also got in the Halloween spirit and x-rayed treats free of charge to make sure there were no unwanted surprises inside the candy. Brackenridge, Seton, and St. David's all report a big turnout at their x-ray centers, but say they found nothing hidden in any of the treats. Police and sheriff's departments also report a quiet Halloween night.
These were the terribly true and admittedly awful crimes that scarred the minds of Americans leading up to the 1980s, leading them to feel that child abductors, child killers, and child rapists were hiding in every home, perhaps even in their own neighborhoods. Despite the growing public paranoia and fear regarding kidnappers who wanted nothing more than to harm children, this was the era of nearly complete freedom, the kids on bikes era, in which I myself came of age. when a child had free range of their hometown or neighborhood, roaming streets and parks as they pleased on their bicycles, and only needing to come back home for dinner or sometime after nightfall. Perhaps nothing gives a clearer sense of the freedom that children enjoyed in these years than this very popular news tagline from the 60s and 70s.
It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
It's a very foreign concept to parents today, I think, who enjoy a constant electronic tether on their kids. That parents then would give their children such free rein that they may not even know where the kids are at 10 o'clock at night and need this reminder to check on their safety. And it was in this era, when child killers and child poisoners seemed alarmingly common, that the rising panic over children everywhere being hunted by deranged maniacs suddenly spiked with a rash of highly publicized missing children cases. In 1979, 6-year-old Eitan Pates disappeared on his way to a school bus stop in the Soho neighborhood of Manhattan. His father, a photographer, provided the media with numerous photos of the boy, and the ensuing media campaign to find him helped launch a nationwide missing children movement. Posters featuring Eitan's smiling face were everywhere, even projected on screen at Times Square. Within a few years, with Eitan still missing, President Reagan declared the anniversary of his disappearance National Missing Children's Day. By that time, however, there were other prominent missing children whose cases were also widely publicized in the media. Perhaps most well known was the case of Adam Walsh, a Florida boy who went missing from a Sears department store in 1981.
John and Reva Walsh returned last night from a trip to Orlando and to Tampa, talking to reporters in hopes someone will remember something that could lead to the safe return of the 6-year-old son, Adam. John Walsh says he may take a trip to New York to spread the word nationwide after this recent trip.
I still believe that somehow we'll reach the people that have Adam, and they'll realize that we don't want to hurt them, or we don't want to prosecute, and maybe they'll realize that, you know, how much hurt they've caused by taking Adam, and maybe they'll let him go somewhere.
Unlike Eitan Pates, Adam Walsh's terrible fate was soon discovered, and it is likely this that cemented his place in the public mind. Horrifically, his severed head was found in a roadside drainage canal 2 weeks after his disappearance. Also contributing to the prominence of Walsh's case was that his father, John Walsh, proved to be a very effective advocate and kept the case in the public eye. He and his wife lobbied legislators relentlessly until they helped get the Missing Children Act of 1982 passed, which required the FBI to share information about missing persons and unidentified deceased persons by entering information in a national database. The following year, a television movie about Adam Walsh was released, making him even more of a household name.
Monday, NBC presents another world premiere movie. They were a loving, happy family until their son disappeared.
I've searched the whole mall and I can't find him.
Every parent's fear becomes the movie you must see.
Whatever happens, I love you. We'll go on.
Starring Hill Street Blues' Daniel J. Travati. Monday at 9, 8 Central and Mountain.
In 1984, a new tactic for publicizing missing children cases arose when a dairy in Des Moines, Iowa, started printing the photos of missing children on the side panels of their milk cartons. The first were Johnny Gosch, a Des Moines paperboy who had disappeared 2 years earlier, and Eugene Martin, another area paperboy who had disappeared only recently. The photos of those boys is seared into the minds of many children of the 80s, myself included, as the printing of missing children photos on milk cartons soon spread nationwide, including the photos of Gosch and Martin, as well as others like Eitan Pates, who, like Charlie Ross before him, would never be found. Johnny Gosch's mother, Noreen, like John Walsh, became a vocal advocate of the missing children's movement, testifying before Congress about her suspicions that quote-unquote organized pedophilia operations were behind the Des Moines paperboy abductions, getting legislation passed that forced police to respond more quickly to missing child reports, and receiving an invitation to attend Reagan's dedication of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. By 1988, the other champion of missing children, John Walsh, would become the face of America's ongoing war on crime, hosting America's Most Wanted.
Starting tonight, America just may be a safer place. America's Most Wanted. Television's first weekly manhunt is a new weapon in the battle against crime. And it's sending America's Most Wanted rapists, robbers, and murderers back to jail. Host John Walsh, whose 6-year-old son Adam was brutally murdered, leads this crusade against crime. America's Most Wanted has already captured 4 fugitives. You'll see how crimes are committed. Hear actual eyewitness accounts and get the clues, the pieces of the puzzle we all need to hunt down America's Most Wanted tonight.
So frightening stories of violent crime were beamed directly into every home, inflating the public perception of the prevalence of such crimes and encouraging a widespread anxiety about criminals that we and our children may encounter. The stranger danger panic was then in full swing. The catchy rhyming term stranger danger has been traced back to the 1960s, where in Texas at least, it was already being used in public service campaigns, specifically films to warn elementary school kids about the threat of molestation. Here's one of the earliest I could find, from a 1972 educational film called The Dangerous Stranger.
I'm sure your parents and teachers have told you never to talk to strangers. But sometimes kids forget, and some kids think they know it all, that nothing could ever happen to them. Well, let's see. I'm going to tell you how some other boys and girls got mixed up with strangers, so we can be sure it never happens to us. Remember the story about little Debbie Vincent?
Hi there, little lady. My goodness, you're all alone. Wouldn't you like to go for a ride with me? I'll buy you some ice cream.
Well, nobody saw her again. It was on the TV news.
And now, turning to the local scene, the search continues for little Debbie Vincent, missing since yesterday morning. So far, there are no clues to her disappearance. Police speculate that she must have forgotten her parents' warnings and perhaps gone off with someone in a car. No witness has been located who can give any description or license number that might help in tracking down the vehicle.
Debbie forgot what her parents had told her about strangers. And see what happened?
Years later, in the wake of the poisoned candy panic and the missing children movement, the idea that children should be strongly warned that all adults they don't know must be considered dangerous became a national movement and even a phenomenon, characterized by the use of the phrase stranger danger and popularized in television public service announcements, much like the old news tagline about knowing where your children are.
I saw a man yesterday. He wanted to take me to buy some candy.
What did you do?
I ran away and told my teacher.
What did she say?
Just what my mommy and daddy told me, never go anywhere with strangers.
Jeffrey, what's a stranger?
A stranger is somebody you maybe don't know or never saw before. You don't know their name or where they live.
But what if they're nice?
Never go anywhere with a stranger. Never take candy or anything from a stranger. Ask your mom and dad.
These PSAs usually featured a creepy-looking adult rolling up to kids in a car and trying to lure them inside.
You've taught your children to be polite and friendly, but have you taught them when not to be?
Hi there! Do you live around here?
Uh-huh.
You going to school?
Yes.
Well, I could give you a ride.
Often these PSAs did not themselves use the phrase stranger danger. That phrase was used as shorthand for the whole concept of this public safety campaign and the growing fears about pedophile abductors and killers lurking unnoticed among us. Instead, the phrase most commonly associated with the campaign was "don't talk to strangers," and we can surmise how thoroughly the concept had penetrated the zeitgeist by how the phrase started to show up in pop music. Here's 80s heartthrob Rick Springfield with his 1982 song, Don't Talk to Strangers.
Don't talk to strangers, baby, don't you talk to strangers.
Ironically, we can also hear it in heavy metal music, a form of entertainment also thought to be a threat to young people at the time. Here's Dio's 1983 song of the same name.
Don't talk to strangers. I'm the stranger.
The campaign reached its young target audience most effectively through that magical medium, Saturday morning cartoons. First in PSA commercials.
Remember, a stranger
Can mean danger. Now I know.
and knowing is half the battle.
G.I. Joe.
Hey, your parents were in an accident. Get in, I'll take you to them.
Don't go. I guess I shouldn't. Jen!
Who was that?
I don't know. She said Vicky's parents were in an accident.
Your parents are safe at home. Never listen to a stranger. Ask an adult you know and trust, a teacher or a relative.
I'm glad I did the right thing.
Doing the right thing makes you a superstar.
That's Jenny. But that's not Jenny's dad. If she gets into that car, you may be looking at Jenny for the last time. I'm McGruff, the crime dog. You know, your kids can learn to protect themselves against crime at home, at school, on the street. Learn how to keep your family and your community safe and help take a bite out of crime.
And then eventually in full-length episodes of your favorite shows and even specials.
In today's story, you saw what happened when a stranger came to the palace. She turned out to be evil and dangerous. Of course, turning people into animals is only make-believe, but there is nothing make-believe about how dangerous some strangers can be in real life. Never accept any food or toys or money from a stranger. Don't even talk to them. And no matter what a stranger may say, never go away with them. Terrible things have happened to some kids who did. The smart thing is to just walk away, or in my case, just float away.
Now sing it. Never, 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 ever, ever, ever. Never talk to strangers. Yeah, never, 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 ever, ever, ever. Never talk to strangers.
They even managed to reach kids through the toys that they advertised during those cartoons. One of the most best-selling toys of the mid-'80s was Teddy Ruxpin, the talking animatronic bear.
There are lots of teddy bears, but only one Teddy Ruxpin.
Hi, my name is Teddy Ruxpin.
Hi, Teddy.
Your friend is what I'd like to
He's
be.
alive. How does he do that? He's a magic bear.
One day, we found an old treasure map. The treasure was supposed to be...
My friend Teddy Ruxpin.
Teddy Ruxpin comes with storybook and cassette. Other stories sold separately, batteries not included.
Teddy Ruxpin came with a tape that made the blinking, chin-wagging toy lecture kids about stranger danger.
No one should ask you for directions or ask you to look for a lost puppy. No one should tell you that your mother and father are in trouble and that they will take you to them. If someone tries to take you somewhere, quickly get away from them and yell and scream, "This person is trying to take me away!"
Ruxpin was such an effective messenger for the Stranger Danger campaign that he became its official mascot.
I'm Teddy Ruxpin, and the official spokesbearer for the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children.
By the mid to late 80s, the Stranger Danger campaign was so widespread, so ubiquitous in American culture, as to be inescapable. It's very easy to look at all the terrible and very real crimes that led up to the Stranger Danger campaigns of the 80s and chafe at calling it a moral panic or at suggesting the campaigns were unwarranted. And I would not suggest that educating children about such dangers is unwarranted or misguided. There is a real need, a real importance in educating children about consent, about people who may try to trick or manipulate them, about trusting their instincts when someone makes them feel uncomfortable or scared, and about avoiding situations in which they may be vulnerable. As the long history of crimes against children leading up to the stranger danger movement shows, the danger is real. But as the even longer history of moral panics in which scapegoats are accused of crimes against children also shows, this danger is historically exaggerated. And that is the case here as well. Just as the danger of poisoned Halloween candy was completely overblown and based mostly on a case in which a father, not a stranger, was to blame, so too the danger that a stranger would kidnap your kid was exaggerated, specifically with false statistics. McGruff the crime dog told Saturday morning cartoon viewers that 60 kids a day disappeared.
Let me show you something. See that playground? A lot of kids there. Every day in this country, 60 kids disappear. Some run away, but a lot are kidnapped by strangers or even by people they know. Almost 20,000 kids a year. 20,000 kids, one kid at a time. Maybe your kid, on your street.
At least he acknowledged that some of those 20,000 kids a year were taken by people they know. A PSA from the American Medical Association claiming the disappearance of 50,000 kids a year made no such concession.
Last year, 50,000 children disappeared, many of them from nice, safe neighborhoods.
It's okay. Come on, help me.
Talk to your children about not talking to strangers, and do it today. A message for your child's safety from the American Medical Association.
And this is the heart of the panic. The widespread belief that the threat was far greater and of a different character than it actually was. As more objective statistical analysis has since proven, 99% of child abductions are perpetrated by someone known to the victim, typically a family member, and most commonly a non-custodial father. Moreover, family members are also the most likely perpetrators of child sexual abuse and murder. Therefore, the fear-mongering effect of stranger danger campaigns had created the direct harm of convincing children that they could not trust those outside their family, even to help them if they were experiencing abuse. In one very illustrative case, an 11-year-old Boy Scout lost in the mountains outside Salt Lake City for 4 days in 2005 explained that he had been avoiding search and rescue because they were strangers and he feared they would, quote-unquote, steal him. In addition, there is the unquantifiable psychological harm of a generation being raised to believe that any adult they meet might well secretly want to abduct and murder them. The first to really raise the alarm about this harm was famed child psychologist Dr. Benjamin Spock, who suggested that it may cause emotional trauma for children to see photographs of missing kids every morning on their milk cartons. And today we recognize that these fears, which obviously also affected a whole generation of parents, led to more protective parenting styles and overprotection, leading to kids staying indoors, developing what some have called a, quote, nature deficit disorder, end quote. These alleged effects of the stranger danger panic, along with the advent of the internet and smartphones, are further blamed by some for a mental health crisis among youth today. These, however, are debatable as long-term effects of the stranger danger panic. What is certain is that this moral panic led directly and causally into the other moral panic that came to define the 1980s. And this one did undeniable harm to families and innocents all over the country. A couple of years after the Adam Walsh murder, a suspect emerged, serial killer Otis Toole, who confessed to killing Walsh. Otis also claimed that he had been raised and abused by Satanists, and that he and fellow murderer Henry Lee Lucas killed at the behest of a satanic cult. called the Hand of Death. And late in the 1980s, the disappearance of Johnny Gosch was claimed to be linked to a supposed child prostitution ring in Omaha, Nebraska, around which also swirled rumors of satanic rituals. A story of political corruption and organized child abuse that served as a kind of prototype and template for the recent claims of Pizzagate. But Otis Toole was a known liar, and the Omaha sex trafficking ring allegations were determined to be a lurid hoax by multiple grand juries. But these cases illustrate exactly how the exaggerated fears of the stranger danger panic had transformed during the 80s into widespread, unfounded claims of organized, devil-worshipping conspiracies bent on abducting, ritually abusing, and murdering American kids. Next time, in part 2 of Think of the Children, the Satanic Panic. Thank you for listening to Historical Blindness. As always, special thanks go out to my partner patrons, Diane Lane, Robert Fisher, Joe Escott, Devlin Hoff, Lisa, Prickly Pear, Fred R. Groteis, Robin Naggett, Maddie Kinney, Rebecca, Don Mundus, Eunice Allen Bradley, Juliet O'Connor, Jonathan Williams, Joshua Luddington, Christine LeBlanc, Lonnie C., Kaylee, Ama, Christopher L. Burton, Benny Slater, That One Girl, Chris, Jocelyn Clausen, Lindsay McAllister, an anonymous patron, Brian, CPJ MLT LTD, Jamie Nielsen, Wizard in a Tower, Martin Robistow, and Josh Haberman. Thanks to all my patrons for supporting me and my political speech throughout this unprecedented year in American history. I don't kid myself that you all agree with everything I've said, so thank you especially to those who have been open and receptive to views that don't entirely align with their own. And thanks to all the patrons who have reached out with encouragement during this time. I expect that I will soon be producing more explicitly political content as the current regime continues headlong toward the destruction of our democracy. This podcast is part of the Airwave Media Podcast Network. Visit airwavemedia.com to listen and subscribe to their other fine shows, like The Constant and Who Did What Now. Some music on this episode was licensed through a Blue Dot Sessions blanket license at the time of the episode's publication. Additional music is by Kai Engel, licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution license. Check out the show notes for a list of the tracks used. You can support the show by pledging on Patreon or by making a one-time donation on PayPal. Find those links in the show notes or find me on Venmo at Historical Blindness. Until next time, remember, moral panics are often based on conspiracy claims, and a common feature of both is that they may have as their basis real facts, but those facts are misinterpreted and purposely misrepresented, and the conclusions reached from those premises through faulty reasoning are unfounded.
I'm Matt Kaplan, the host of Safeguarding Sound Science, Evolution Edition. Evolution is the unifying principle of biology, yet it still breeds controversy a century and a half after Charles Darwin. Join us as we meet the passionate researchers and communicators who are expanding our knowledge and fighting to keep good science in our schools and politics. Subscribe to Safeguarding Sound Science on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or wherever you like to listen.